This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work, responding to another Ask Prof Wolff question from our Patreon community. And this question comes from Ian Caruana. And Ian asks about pensions. And as a population ages, as ours in the United States is, and as many others are, this week question becomes a burning question for everyone. And let me explain why, because it's the background to Ian Caruana's question. We support elderly people through our Social Security system here by effectively taxing working age people. The money that we take out of the weekly check for the Social Security, the FICA it's called, if you see it on your check, that's money that goes into a fund, and that fund is then used to make checks to people 65, 66 years of age, people who have completed a lifetime of work and are now into their retirement years. And we have pledged as a society all the way back to the 1930s when Social Security was passed by the Congress and signed by the president and reaffirmed by every administration since, that we accept it's an obligation in our society to make a decent retirement for people. Heaven knows you cannot live on Social Security, which is itself a problem, but it at least is a system in which we ask young people with a lifetime ahead of them to take a small part of their weekly paycheck, put it aside, and that money will then be available to them when they get that age, as a new generation does the work. And so Ian's question is, if the population of older people is getting larger relative to the population of younger ones, and that is the case, we have a population bubble, as it's called, of older people, is it then the case that the only way we can keep the older people taken care of is if we grow the population of young people? And given a planet that's already at the edges of what it can tolerate, we can't keep adding young people to solve that problem because the planet can't handle it. What is to be done? Or are we stuck forever with having to increase the population of the younger folks who, of course, go on to live their lives? This is an interesting question. It comes up so often. And it's scary because if you don't answer it properly, it becomes a struggle between older and younger. Because obviously there'll be some right-wing politicians who will tell us, gee, it's not fair to tax the young ones, and so we won't give old people the support they need, and that way we won't have to tax the young ones. That kind of warfare can be as deadly as any other kind of civil conflict. So then what do we do? Well, the answer is we have lots of options. I'm going to give you an example. The easiest and quickest one is to say, no, the commitment to the elderly is a firm one, and we're going to take care of them. But that doesn't mean we have to have more people. It just means we have to have more resources. And maybe the way to do that is to have a genuinely progressive tax system. What about going after the super rich in this country in a way we haven't for decades, and say to them, one of the reasons you have to pay higher taxes is because you live in a society of older people who we have a commitment to take care of them. And we could do that, and then we wouldn't have to increase the population because taking care of the older ones would be paid for by taxing those who have gone untaxed in terms of their massive wealth for a very, very long time. Here's another solution that could be found other than population growth. We can move from a system of private consumption to a system of collective consumption. What do I mean? Well, the easiest example would be housing. We don't have to have a society that has individual single-family houses. That would cost more energy to keep warm, more energy to run, more maintenance costs and time. And having people live in built communities, housing projects, carefully constructed, with shared laundry facilities, shared childcare opportunities, We've done that from time to time in this country. We could and we should do it again. And you get a lot more output for a lot less input if you do it that way. Transportation is another thing. Instead of wasting vast resources that everybody has a private car that sits unused most of the time, suppose we take the concept of rent-a-car and make it something universal, run by the government, and therefore very inexpensive, all cars maintained for 5 or 10 years. And so we share these things. We get them for ourselves when we need them. We have the private use, but the collective maintenance. These are enormous savings that could be achieved and make it therefore possible to honor our commitments to the elderly. So the answer, Ian, is we don't have to grow our population. We don't have to think we're in a contradiction between saving the planet and dealing properly with our older folks. No, no, no. There are a lot of other options, and the reason they're not considered is that the people who want the profits of making lots of cars instead of a small number of public transportation mechanisms, and the people who want to make money off private housing, they don't want to hear about collective consumption because it might impinge on their profits. It's our job to say that impinging on their super wealth and profits may be the best available solution given all the things we have, and it shouldn't be excluded from the conversation the way it so often is. If presentations like these, opening up what can be done, facing the possibility that systemic change is what we need, big changes to solve our big problems, then we ask you to partner with us, to work with us to get these messages out. Share this video with friends, family, co-workers, wherever you can. That's a way we will get further in the task we've set ourselves, and you can become part of the solution as well. And as always, I close with telling you that if, of course, you can support us financially, all of this costs money, as you know, and we would be grateful for that as well. Thank you.